All right, let's bring in our guest. Very excited about this one. His new book is called There's Just One Problem, True Tales from the Former One-Time Seventh Most Powerful Person in WWE. From parts unknown, weight unknown, our good pal, Brian Gewirtz. What's happening, buddy?
Thank you. Thank you for weight being unknown, too. Everything is going good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Listen, we're going to get to this book, which is fantastic. First half is fantastic. I hope it doesn't, hope it's not like the Cowboys where there's a second half collapse, but I don't imagine there will be. I'm going to finish it either tonight or tomorrow. Is that okay with you if I finish the second half this weekend?
Yeah, this is not a 2007 Mets situation. I think you're going to...
Forgot about that. Well, we up 7 with 17 and we blew it. All right. Yep. I do want to, let's talk about these Mets. Now you're a big Mets fan. I'm a big Mets fan. Are you allowing yourself to be optimistically excited yet? I mean, it's hard not to be, right?
It's very hard not to be. I mean, this team, you keep saying it, you keep reading it. This team is different. It really is different. I mean, I don't know, like I don't even know where to start. Like Scherzer, DeGrom, Carrasco, Walker, and Bassett. I mean, like that's
Peterson, like out of nowhere.
But, like 2007, all our pitchers got hurt into the playoffs. We're praying for John Maine and Ali Perez. And the manager is competent and knows what he's doing.
Right.
And knows the rules. Like we were, this was like Mickey Callaway is challenging reporters to fights. And, Lopez is like, happy to be here. Like, I don't know where to even begin. This is different.
And they're fun too, right? I think that's how it's different. Like I'm trying to think of, out of every team that we've rooted for, every Mets team in the middle of August that's been 15 or 20 games over 500. Did we feel that way? Like this team is different. This team is special. I don't think so. Last year's team definitely didn't think they'd blow it to the Braves at this point in the season after the Braves losing their best player. But I really feel like we're going to win the division after what we did to the Braves. We might blow it in the playoffs to the Dodgers. But I think we have a deep run and it is fun. Vogelback is fun. Edwin Diaz is fun. The entrance music. You're a WWE. You're all about entrance music. Is there anything better than that?
There's nothing better than that. Would you say your entrance music would be Huey Lewis?
I did actually say that on a podcast the other day. I'm working it was my entrance music for my match.
That's true.
The one I won, still undefeated in WWE.
I'd go with Take Me Home by Phil Collins. I think that works on many levels because even if you screw up, you're still getting taken home in some respect.
Right. A little slow build, a little slow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The pageantry. Oh my God.
Right. Exactly. All right. So I mean, just really, you're right. Like, it's so funny. Like right before you didn't hear, I did a Buffalo Wild Wings promotional thing where I picked a prop for the year. I didn't mean for this to come out this way, but I picked your football coach, Sean McDermott, 30-1 odds to win Coach of the Year. It lends itself to our discussion about we're not used to having competent coaches. You kind of have one, you root for the Bills. I don't ever have one rooting for the Cowboys, and the Mets have been hit or miss for the last 50 years of my existence. So, but I think we really have one in Buck. It's weird.
I don't know how he was not managing like the previous 3 years or what have you. Like he was one of those guys where every time, Terry Collins, everyone loves Terry Collins now. There were plenty of times though where he's like, why didn't they pinch run for Jay Bruce? He's like, I didn't know he was fast or not fast. Well, look at him. You have eyes, right? But obviously World Series appearance, all is forgiven. You tend to love Collins, but then Callaway, every time like they'd blow a game, and it's like you just want a human emotion of like, I'm pissed off. Well, we battled. We could have gone down 1-2-3, but someone worked out a walk and we then got out 1-2-3. It's just like, it's so refreshing to have a guy like when Buck does his little like challenge to the, then there's a competent person even in the replay booth who's telling him, we're going to win this one. The Mets have the number one, replay efficiency stat in terms of things being overturned. It's like, who are these people? I love it. It's
really stupid. And yet there's like 50 games left, right? what's the equivalent of football? Like if your team was 8-3 and you're already sending them to the Super Bowl, I don't know why I'm comparing everything to football. But anyway, of course, we have to stay healthy. You don't want to jinx it and you want to enjoy the run. But pretty cool so far, for sure. I do want to talk about the new book. There's just one problem. True Tales from the former one-time seventh most powerful. Well, explain the seventh most powerful person in WWE. This is out Tuesday, by the way. Explain that part of it, because that's funny in itself.
So there was a yearly most influential poll in one of the pay for subscription wrestling newsletter websites that I was able to be privy to in doing the research for the book. I don't know how exactly they determined this. I was ranked ahead of Triple H, which shows the true scientific method behind it, because I don't think that has literally ever been the case for a second in my tenure at WWE. But I always thought it was like kind of funny. Like I was seventh, and that sounds about right. It's high enough to be considered a big deal, but not too high to be so full of yourself.
Right.
So, I took that, that particular ranking that year and was like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to run with this, because I think this is apt tonally for the book. And also, as far as the hierarchy, I think it was pretty accurate.
Accurate. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you run with it? Yeah. It should be in your Twitter bio, maybe a tombstone, whatever you have planned. And especially since the first six have the last name of McMahon, right? I mean, who were even the first six? I don't even know, aside from Vince. I mean, you got Stephanie, and I don't know what year it was, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was the mid 2000s. So I would say, Vince's trainer was probably up there. Whoever fixes his meals and stuff like that.
Right.
Again, if they don't show up, if Vince doesn't get his workout in or isn't fed, the whole tenor of the show is going to change, and it's going to change, for the worse, because he's going to be a very angry person. So I would rank him ahead of me.
Okay, so you talk about there's little jabs like that. Fun. I'm laughing throughout now, but it makes me think like you have to be a little bit scared, because you write about like these lunatics, and even if you are telling the truth, they might not remember. You even allude to guys not remember meeting you or first encounters and everything. There's a good chance if they read the book, they're not going to remember things as you lay it out. And it's not always the most flattering version of them. Like when I wrote my book, I wasn't too worried about my 82-year-old Aunt Chippy running after me, chasing me down. Like I've taken a shot from her and it wouldn't hurt. But is there anyone you're mildly nervous about reading this, or more than anybody else?
No, I mean, look, time heals a lot of wounds. Not all wounds, but a lot of wounds.
Okay, so you'll recover if you get beat up after this, you're saying.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't necessarily what I was going for. But you're of course you're right. I think it's like, at the time where, it was life or death. The idea of like running into Paul Heyman now, and I see Paul when I go backstage at WWE shows, and him rolling up his sleeves and being like, that thing you said about when we, were fighting in 2002 and got suspended. I think about that every day. I'm not over it yet. We got to have it out right here now. Now it all seems so silly and stupid, compared to in the heat of the moment.
Right.
This will be a great clip to show when I'm hospitalized by an angry after
I can't wait.
Reading the book. Yeah, but I don't think there's anything in there that prompts. We need to find this guy's address, storm the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and find this person and then enact our revenge.
All right. Okay. I'm glad you're confident. Now, of the I think you had 8 blurbs, people speaking on your behalf, saying how great the book is. How many of the 8? I think it was Rock, Kurt Angle, Miz, Becky Lynch, McFoley, Booker T, Ken Jeong. I don't even remember him wrestling that much, and Edge. How many of the 8 do you think actually read part of the book? I'm going to say over under is 2.5.
Oh, you would. That's
under.
Very, very much over.
Oh, okay.
I sent the book to all of them.
That doesn't mean anything.
And I got feedback from all of them. Oh. And let me tell you something, brother. I don't think any of them are really concerned about my feelings. So like if they thought it sucked or they said I haven't gotten to it yet, they would just tell me that, I'm like accrued enough. I would say Miz has not read a word of it. That's for sure. I definitely think that,
well, his blurb is funny then if that's the case, because he's like, not enough Miz. I guess if it was all about him, he would still think it wasn't enough, right?
Yeah, there's never enough Miz. I think that's kind of, I think you could use that for all books.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Miz would have to be kind of like I'm on the fence about, but everyone else, at the very least, and this is all you can ask, would go into the index and look up where their name is and at least read that part.
Well, that's what I did. I'm going to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Of course, that's what the very first thing I did. And I saw page 159. I went to get to it. And, I wanted to make sure that there was no nefarious or defamatory language in there. And your quote for me was, Sal is a wise ass, heel loving Mets fan from Long Island who also grew up idolizing Roddy Piper. And I think every bit of that is fair. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I could really, how we met and everything. I
guess we should refresh that. Yeah. How we met. Yeah. I don't want to take the spotlight here because this is about you and your book, but, how we met is our mutual friend, Kristen Prouty, set me up. She used to be a booker on Jimmy Kimmel Live. She then was in charge of what was called the Divas back then, right? Not in charge, but she would facilitate and getting them to and fro and signing up new talent. And I said, get me a storyline. I would love to get a storyline in the WWE. We can involve my cousin Jimmy, and I would love Roddy Piper to train me. Somehow that all came together. Roddy Piper, I idolized him, like you said, growing up. So did you. And you had to write my promo. I think we were in, where were we? In Kansas, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we were in Kansas. And you wrote my promo that was intended to build heat for the match between me and Santino Marella, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And well, first of all, Kristen was originally brought in to be my right-hand person.
Is that right? Wow.
And that, went about as well as you could possibly envision it going, where, she then became the head of entertainment relations. We got along much, much better once she became head of entertainment. We joke about it now all the time. Yeah. But then, it's like, she was like, Cousin Sal is going to be on the show. And, and then of course, the subtext of that was like, we're going to get a vignette with Kimmel too, right? Oh yeah, we're going to be in his corner, and so I'm like, all right, I'll give this Sal guy a call, and I did, and we worked out our thing. But the key moment, the first time there was like, okay, this is going to be good. If you recall, it was the night when John Lester threw a no-hitter for the Red Sox.
That's right, yeah.
Kind of walked into your dressing room area and was like, well, another team that's not mine just threw a no-hitter. And you're like, oh, brother, my team has never thrown a no-hitter.
Oh, yeah.
Like that Step Brothers moment. And then it was like, wait a second. You like the Mets? You like Piper? Like, all right.
You're a Padres fan. Oh, no, it was Mets. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be just fine. And then, it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that was great. Why don't you just root for the Cowboys at this point? Because so we can love the Mets, Piper, and the Cowboys together. You got to leave the Bills.
I root for the New York teams.
I gotcha.
There's only one New York team, and I think all New Yorkers, regardless of what part of the state they're in, should support them.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, the others in New Jersey. There is something to that. And you went to college in Syracuse, so you weren't that far away from where the Buffalo Bills played.
Yeah, and during their Super Bowl run too, where
you're 2 years younger than me, so you were 95. You graduated college.
Yeah.
Right. So 93 was the Cowboys. So you were in the midst of all that crap, all that bad stuff. Right.
Yeah.
When I graduated, the Cowboys killed them 52-17.
Yeah. I don't really,
you don't remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Piper for a second, because we both loved him. And I think we both came about loving him the same way. Like, I don't know. I was young and like you said, a wise ass, and I didn't want to root for the good guys. I didn't like Bob Backlund or Pedro Morales, and they were boring. Piper had grit, and he was funny. It was important to me that he was funny. Like, how many guys were funny? Like, Captain Lou Albano was funny. There were probably about 6 or 7 guys who were funny. Like Snuka, great baby face, terrifying, not funny. Piper had grit, like I said, funny, and would cut himself, and that's all I needed. Where'd you come out on Piper?
I was in the same vein. You know, obviously, as like a 12-year-old, I didn't know about Piper's history in Portland and Mid-Atlantic and LA and Mexico and everything. You know, I got to, as you did, learn about that stuff and was like, oh my God, you know, we're basically WWF is the tip of the iceberg as far as like Roddy's career. But yeah, like, you know, I'd be the one like you know, just like, you know, obviously, you know, decades before YouTube, just sitting like glassy eyed at MTV, sitting through so many, you know, Dire Straits videos and, you know, Duran Duran videos, just waiting for Land of a Thousand Dances to pop up. So we could see Roddy interrupt it and, you know, start cutting a promo on Uncle Elmer. And, you know, the same thing, waiting for the Goonies or Good Enough video with Piper and, you know, Freddie Blassie and Iron Sheik and all these guys showing up, trying to put Cyndi Lauper and her gas station out of business. Do you recall that? There was like, yeah. And then the Bangle show at the end for some reason, it like no sense. And Spielberg's in it, and it's wonderful. And Andre the Giant shows up in like some weird jungle outfit at the end, just like emerges out of a cloud of smoke. Like nothing, no part of that video made any sense, and it was just wonderful. But yeah, same with you. Like watching the Piper's Pits. I was at the live Piper's Pit in the Garden where he ran down Bruno Sammartino.
I was there too. Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy. And yeah, and then
were you wearing a kilt? I was actually wearing a kilt, and then we were probably on the same train going back to Long Island, right? But you weren't wearing a kilt and weren't getting
I wasn't wearing a kilt. I did buy my first Hot Rod shirt at that show, though.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah. So I'm mixed about this because I'm torn with advising people to meet their heroes because it could go horribly wrong. Probably most of the time. And I include like them not making eye contact with you going horribly wrong, or it could work out like it did for us. Like I loved Emmitt Smith as a Cowboys running back, and he couldn't be more of a douchebag when I met him. He walked out on our hidden camera that he and his agent agreed to. Anyway, it's a long story, but Roddy Piper, thumbs up, right? I'd also advise keep your heroes in the middle. If you like C and D level celebrities, you have a better chance of working it out. Whereas if you're a big Paul McCartney fan, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me just say I haven't met the man, but I know Thurman Thomas would never have done that to you. You should consider, maybe you should consider, coming to your roots in New York if it's not too late. But yeah, I mean, it was really lucky, especially for me, because I had so much against me going into meeting Roddy. He did not have a pleasant experience with previous wrestling writers in WCW and other companies. He never needed a writer, as we know, getting over. He got himself over in his promos and everything. And also, like, who the fuck am I? Some 20 something. When I first met him in 2003, like 29-year-old weirdo, like kind of hiding in the corner, slack jawed, looking at him. He pretty much had every reason to be like, very dismissive and not give me the time of day or intentionally, make my life miserable. But it was just the opposite,
Well, not to mention it was touch and go with the company at that point, right? Well, probably always was, let's be honest, but
it probably was. Yeah. I did have, Bruce Pritchard, who's like, one of the long time, brother love and wrestling creative minds in WWE for decades. He's close with Roddy. So I had the benefit of Bruce kind of talking me up before I met him. And I think that had a lot to do with, the ice melting before, we really even got started.
Right. I mean, it was the greatest. I liked him better when he was sober, but we had many meals. I had meals with you and Roddy together, and it was just a fun guy and fucking funny as shit, and really cared about you, like really like a gentle man, right? Really like learned his lessons, learned his manners. Yes, sir. No, sir. If you'd go out to eat, and he would call me just to find out. He's like, my pal. He'd call me my pal. I was like, why aren't you playing with your kids? I'm like, well, I'm talking to you. He's like, hang up the phone and go play with your kids. You know, you learned a lot of life lessons that you laughed at the time, but he was tremendous. I do miss him, and I know you do as well. Now, he wasn't part of wrestling court though, right?
No, that was 2 years earlier.
Okay. Explain to everyone what this is.
So Wrestler's Court, how I opened the book, because I want to, nobody cares about, and then when I was 7 years old, I went to, forget that.
It's a good chapter to start. It's perfect chapter to start.
Yeah. Exactly. So I was, this is 2001. So I'd been there for like maybe a year or 2 years, but like really, still kind of like introverted, let's just say. Not necessarily, being the big hug and, come here, pal, bring it in type of thing. Some would say standoffish because of that introverted nature of like, what the hell with this guy? But the friends that I did have, the people I was close with and was always writing for. And one of them was, the team of Edge and Christian. And Edge happened to have been given a Flash action figure at a comic book signing that he was out. He knew I liked the Flash, and gave it to me. And in that time, the one person you don't want to seeing you get a Flash action figure from a wrestler you're very close with, Hardcore Holly, saw this transaction, I guess, of sorts take place. I guess it wasn't a transaction. I didn't give him
it's only you receiving. Yeah.
A Winger CD or whatever Edge, listened to at the time. I just took the Flash action figure. But I was accused of, basically giving him TV time in exchange for gifts, which if I knew that was on the table, I would be giving everybody TV time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Who wouldn't want gifts given to you? I would do a trick sometimes where, especially when Edge and Christian were doing their 5-second poses, and we'd insult the local sports team. When we went to Boston, I made sure there was a Mookie Wilson Buckner 5-second pose with Edge and Christian that they did specifically so I can keep the Mets jersey used in the promo afterwards.
Wow.
This is how I accrued most of my wardrobe at the time. So we were pretty close. Bob Holly saw this. Bob, and I get along great with Bob now. It's, again, time heals a lot of wounds. But, at the time, this was a serious infraction, if it were to be taken at a certain level of accepting gifts. So Edge, Christian, and I were summoned to Wrestler's Court. It's funny because Christian had nothing to do with the Flash exchange. And it wasn't even in the nearby vicinity, but he got dragged into it too. And yeah, like this was like a kind of self-policing kangaroo court type system that was done.
So you don't know if your job is on the line. You don't know. Everything's ribbing on the square, but these guys are serious, and you certainly have to show up to this and present your case, and as if it's a real thing, and it kind of is, right?
Yeah. Well, to set the stage, first of all, I assumed when Stephanie McMahon told me about it, I assumed it was a small tribunal type of like, let's have a little talk, and she's like, get beer and pizza. So I like frantically ran into the concession stands, like overpaid, bribed like a concession worker who's just like, we don't sell food before the show starts. What are you talking about? I'm like, just take all my money, give me a pizza and a beer. Thank goodness I have a box of pizza and a 6-pack. I'm set. And then I go down to where the trial was, and it's literally every single person in the company. There had to be over 100 people, and I'm there with my single 6-pack and pizza. And I guess I won't be needing this anymore. Set the stage. The Undertaker is the judge.
Awesome.
Kane, the AKA the Big Red Monster, the Devil's favorite demon. He's the bailiff standing with his arm folded right behind me. And Bradshaw, later who would become, JBL, but this is Loudmouth, Texas. The man who I would eventually share season tickets with at Chase Stadium, but I decidedly did not back then. He was the prosecutor.
Okay.
So, so that was, and then Edge, Christian, and I are in our little, box, I guess, makeshift box. This is all hours before we're supposed to do a SmackDown live to tape in front of a sold out arena 2 days after WrestleMania 2017. And yeah, it was one of those things where I found out later that Edge and Christian were tipped off to the wrestlers court. This is the first time a writer had ever been taken to wrestlers court.
Mm-hmm.
There were many writers before then anyway, but it was all by the wrestlers for the wrestlers. So this was like kind of breaking precedent. Edge and Christian, who later told me a guy whose name rhymes with Burt Fangle, tipped him off and told him that you're going to wrestlers court. So they came prepared with like props. They had like a fake made up book, how to kiss ass and get ahead and wrestling and everything. And like every time they opened their mouths, raucous laughter from the crowd of, WWF circa 2001. Every time I tried to then counter with a potential laugh of my own.
No good.
Soul crushing silence. Like if anything, it made confusion, anger, like any attempt at humor was just met. Like they were just not having it. And then eventually, like the Edge and Christian part kind of segged out and it became a very real, like airing of grievances to the point where I had to physically step in front of me to stop wrestlers from coming up and, airing a little bit more of the piece of their mind. This
is insanity. Does this still go on, by the way? And we'll get to the result in a second, but does this?
I can't imagine it goes on anymore. First of all, like this is 2001. So there's no social media. There's no it was very easy to do something that would be contained within, outside of maybe like someone talking to a dirt sheet or something, but
it's hazing and feelings are hurt. And so it wouldn't work today.
Yeah. There are a lot of things written about in the book that would not work today.
Right.
Taking a second rope power bomb when we were snowed in Baltimore from Bubba Dudley. That's a whole other thing. But we were all found guilty. Paul Heyman testified against me in a very Paulese type of way that was like straddling the line between sort of true, but also kind of not true. It was just a burial beyond all human understanding, to the point where like Pat Patterson, legendary Pat, came in, towards the end, not realizing that the tone of the trial was not like any other trial. And he was thinking it was all like, ribbing on the square happy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, that little shit, he changing my matches. I hate them. And like the crowd is like, you're changing the legendary Pat Patterson's matches? And then afterwards, I just heard him being like, oh, I thought you guys were ribbing. My Pat straddles the line between Count Dracula, and, he's French.
Count Patula. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
That's good. He apologized to me afterwards, which he didn't have to do. I ended up, again, never before and never since. I asked him for one of his cigarettes and smoked it right there on the spot, just out of just sheer, like the life sucking out of me.
And so you didn't even get a sentence the same day you were prosecuted. I don't know.
No, we had to wait for us. We were found guilty. That much was established. But we had to wait to see what the penance would be and what the punishment was. So that was a fun week. And then of course, like I'm not getting any support, but like Vince, Stephanie, how'd the trial go? I bet that was a hoot. Anyways, Seg 2, where are we with that? Like, I don't know where we are with Seg 2. I was out running around trying to buy a pizza and beer for 6 people in a crowd of 100. But Taker was very, very cool. I had to write a 5,000 word essay on why I respected the business. And I did.
That was the sentence. Yeah.
Yeah. Amongst other things, like, hang out with Funaki and like all these, which makes sense within the chapter that you read, but it was mainly the essay. I wrote it very sincerely. I did not try to be a wise ass. And he gave me an A+ on it. So it all well.
There you go. Who do you think would be the best actual real life judge out of all the wrestlers you've come across? I mean, Undertaker it might just work for him. JBL, I could see that. I mean, I'm looking thinking of like TV judges and stuff.
Judge JBL, I would pay to see that show.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be very good at that. He doesn't really hide his feelings.
Right.
Judge Michael Hayes would be an excellent show. If you're allowed to, you'd have to stream it because there'd be a lot of profanity. There'd probably be some thinking. I think, or long before it's fuck me, it's fuck you. That's a greatest hit direct quote of Michael Hayes, whenever you try to curse him out. So yeah, I think I would pay to see either of those.
Awesome. I'm trying to think, you talk about in the book, the misconceptions of being a WWE writer. What are some of them? I think you talk about how people think that they're not fans to start, and you would say that's not the case with almost all of them, right?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of perceptions of like they take Hollywood, quote unquote, Hollywood writers who have known nothing about wrestling and put them into the company. And on the flip side, they also say they don't want Hollywood, wrestling, quote unquote, marks and being a fan of wrestling, either. So at that point, it's like, well, if they either know nothing about wrestling or everything about wrestling, and neither one of them is acceptable, you're kind of limiting the pool a little bit.
Right.
The reality is yes, there are some people with Hollywood, credits who come in. And I would say, of those people, those who were not fans and were just thought like, oh, I could be plucked from any TV show and then put in the WWE, I'd say maybe 5% of those people, gathered any kind of success. I would say by far the majority of them are fans. In terms of, if you come to I remember like if you come to an interview when we were interviewing people and we're like, hey, listen, I'll just use me for an example. Like I've been to WrestleManias 10, 11, and 12 before even starting here. I idolized Roddy Piper. I love all the aspects of the business, and this is my favorite angle, and this is blah, blah, blah. That bodes well for you, actually. It doesn't, if you come in and go, well, I've been reading the, blank, newsletter, pay newsletter, Insider, and I know all the marks are thinking of this, but in order to get, and start like trying to impress everybody with insider terms and, being like, so like I could picture this person on the phone with Dave Meltzer within seconds of, this interview ending. So that, if you're like, so like talking inside, that usually wasn't like boding well for your chances. But being a fan is actually, something that's, at least when I was there, preferred, because there's like 50 characters between the two shows, and you have a working knowledge of them and the history of the business and how things have succeeded and how things haven't succeeded and why. That's like, it's very beneficial to have that base of knowledge before, embarking.
Yeah, it's gotta be a little bit, right? I'm trying to think of like, comparing it to Jimmy Kimmel Live and the writers that we've hired, and, to not know anything is, okay. I mean, anything could work, right? You could have someone who's never seen the show and they could like get it right away, but the odds are against it. And then you could have a big fan of the show who's like kind of too close to it already, and that doesn't work. But you don't want people pitching stuff for Uncle Sal, right? Because so it's got to be somewhere. I remember my friend David Weinstein, who actually worked for Kimmel and the WWE. It was after you left. I think he lasted like 8 weeks as a writer on Kimmel, and even less at the WWE, because he hadn't watched since the Bruno Sammartino days. But they told him going in, they're like, well, this is great. We can mold you. You have no preconceived opinions on anything, right? Like, you have no bad habits in terms of writing for these characters. And he's like, okay, great. And then he would pitch 2 or 3 and 4 and 10 things that you guys had already done already. And they're like, we already did that, stupid. So it's like, whoa. So yeah, it's really a tough balance to strike, right?
Because the key to that, though, is I don't know who the they is. So the they could be WWE HR, for example. And HR would have the attitude of, oh, that's great, a fresh perspective and a Hollywood credit, IMDb page. What's not to love? And then the writers in the writer's room would be saying the latter thing. You see, I don't know if it's the same people who are saying like, great, you don't know nothing, come on in.
Right.
And idiot, we've already done that. It might be, he might have gotten those messages from 2 very distinct departments.
Okay, maybe he should reapply then. I'm gonna recommend that.
Why not?
He do so. You're very, very tight with The Rock. Want to talk? I think you met. It was like an MTV gig, right? Where you guys met?
Yeah, I was, brought in through a bunch of fortuitous. I know nothing about. I mean, literally nothing about, Hollywood and sometimes using nepotism to, succeed in some capacity.
Heard about it. Don't like it. Jim Belushi, God bless him, but whatever. What is he without his? Yeah. Go ahead. It gets me sick.
Yeah. I threw a series of nepotistic opportunities between my uncle, supplying an internship for my sister at MTV. My sister called me to say, hey, like, we got a bunch of 1999 SummerSlam specials going on and nobody here knows anything about WWE. You sign on. And, and that's where, when we hear anything nepotistic, it's like, okay, yes, to a degree there's that, but ultimately you have to step up to the plate and prove yourself and on your own merits, because otherwise, what are we even talking about?
Right.
I wrote a bunch of samples. I got hired off of that. And one of them, was the WWF at the time superstars introduced their favorite music videos. And I had to do it for Triple H, Mankind, and The Rock. And The Rock was the last one. And that's where we first met. And that's where, he was like, hey, it's not written in this, but what if we did a teaser going into my segment? Well, you're on the phone. You ask me what I think. I'll ask you what you think of my $500 shirt. I'll hit you with an "it doesn't matter." And then I'll pipe the segment. I'm just like, okay.
This is actually you in it. Yeah. This is not just somebody else. Yeah. Right.
Oh, with some of the worst acting, you've ever seen. Like, yes, oh my God, it's The Rock. That's right. It's The Rock. And The Rock wants to know what you think of it. Doesn't matter, and all that.
Right.
There's a reason my cameos in WWE land were very limited, but
this is somewhere on Insta. Didn't you say The Rock found it on Instagram or something, or on YouTube somewhere?
Someone on like a Rock fan page on Instagram found it. I don't know how they found it, because I can't find it on YouTube. And when I called MTV at one point to see if they had it, just out of curiosity,
no chance.
They sent me the wrong show.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't exist except on this one Instagram page. And even that is just like a little clip of it. But yeah, it is proof that it did happen. And he liked what I wrote. He suggested, hey, have you ever thought of this WWE company as a place to potentially work at? Said a lot cooler than how I just said it, by the way. And then, as you know, one thing led to another. A couple of writers left to go to WCW. There was an opening. Hey, we need you here. If you're interested, immediately we'll move your car. We'll we'll put you up in Stamford. You'll start as like literally 50% of the writing team. How about it? And so, at that point I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Amazing. And then you became The Rock's, like I said, right-hand man. I mean, you write all his promos, right? And do you think actually you would still be there if it weren't for The Rock? He pulled you away to his now very successful endeavors away from the aside from the WWE, right?
So someone phrased it as, it's funny because Rock brought you in and Rock also took you out.
Yeah.
Because when he was starting his production company, he offered me the chance, him and Danny Garcia's production company, $7, offered me the chance to come aboard. But I would say this, I would want to point out something. I don't think I've ever solo written a Rock promo in my life. He's one of those guys.
That's not what it says in the book.
Well, Kate Babes now. No. He's one of those guys that is very collaborative. And always like, we collaborated on every segment, when I started working there. But it was never, certain wrestlers like it when not many, but some, like Kurt Angle, for example, in the beginning of his career, just like, I am a human machine. Give me what I need to say. I'll compute it. I will say it flawlessly. And that would take a big weight off my shoulders. Rock was like, yeah, what do you got tonight? Well, I was thinking this and this. Okay, well, what if I said this and this and this instead? Oh, yeah, that would be better, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, and hey, what do you think of this line? Yeah, that's good. And we just, really collaborate for, a good portion of while a show's going on, often backstage and the craziness. But he'd go off to work on his match. I'd put it to paper. I'd give it to him. He'd tweak it again. And then he'd perform it live with like no sweat. So, that was our process, and it just like, we just clicked.
That must be tough to figure out. Or maybe you get a heads up ahead of time. Like, okay, this guy wants everything spoon fed and this guy wants it 50-50. And then this guy just don't even look, make eye contact. Did you learn the hard way of, the last example I gave? Like, is there an intimidating force who, you left bewildered after trying to pitch a promo?
Well, a handy checklist of those columns being filled would have been extraordinarily helpful back then.
Yeah.
But you really don't know. So there was this very obscure wrestler. He didn't like really achieve all that much success. You probably don't remember him. But his name's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, and no.
If you rack your brain, you might be able to think of a promo.
Okay, I'll look after this.
Yeah, Google him afterwards. He was one of those guys who, got himself over as the most over wrestler in the history of the business, really without anyone needing to write anything for him, and really didn't want anyone. And he performed better. To this day, he performs better, with like, give me the gist of what I need to say. Let me go out and say it. That was one where I was put in a very unenviable position where, the company, when Steve went out, he had surgery, he was taken out, he came back, in 2000, 2001, whenever it was. And the company, WWE, had gone public at that point. And Vince was like, now a little bit more, the company in general was a little bit more in the mode of, we're a television show. Television shows are scripted. I want to know what the performers are saying before they go out there. So Brian, go ahead and give Steve this promo that, we've worked on. And, it was like,
that's perfect. Cause you get in trouble, all sorts of trouble if they go off script. I could already tell how this ends, but yeah.
Oh, there's so many avenues of trouble. There's the, so what did Steve think? Is he going to read it? Is he going to do it as scripted? Like, no. Steve, what do you think? I think this is trash. Okay. Do you want to maybe sit down? Like, there wasn't like, again, Steve was, when you're the greatest, superstar of all time, which he is, in my opinion, there's this like, and then you go out and you've made the company, you're not single-handedly, I'd say, but like a major part in winning the Monday Night Wars and putting the competition out of business and making the company millions upon millions. And then all of a sudden you come back and after rehabbing and going through all this hell, and the system is now different than what it used to be. And not necessarily for the better for some people liked it, but not better for him. It's going to cause tension, and it's going to cause like, very, very, very awkwardness on my part, because the last thing I wanted to do, all I care about was Vince saying, yeah, let Steve go off and do his own thing. And we don't need to worry about that. But it wasn't as cut and dry as that. It was like, no, we need, we're as a company, we're evolving, we know what people are saying. We're a publicly traded company now. We want to know what people are saying. So we're going to evolve with the times. And I don't necessarily know if that was evolving or devolving. But it took a long while for it to work out. And, thankfully I do get along great with Steve now, but, it was a little tense back then.
But so aside from the double power bomb, when you guys were snowed in, that was set up. I'm guessing that wasn't completely against your will, but what was the most nervous you ever were in the presence of a wrestler?
Well, I'll give some context. I mean, again, I wrote about it in the book, but
yeah,
the show was
setting
almost
you up, Brian. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the heads up. You can edit that part out. Anyways, no, we were snowed in at SmackDown. It wasn't a live show, so we had the benefit of, waiting for the next day. And it was voluntary, but sort of not, because I looked up and I saw like Tommy Blacha, the other writer, up for a suplex. It was just like wrestlers kind of just, they wouldn't use the word kibitzing, but, kibitzing around, just hanging out, doing, funny things. Like Tommy took a suplex, and then Bubba turned to me and was like, let's do a power bomb. And, at that point, like not every wrestler, but a ton of wrestlers are in the vicinity. And if I wuss out and say, nah, I'm good, thanks, it's going to spread throughout hey, this asshole is telling us to do ladder matches, table matches, and he can't even take a simple double power bomb from the second rope. So I really,
on the other hand, you don't want this to be ceremonial and start every pay-per-view event, right? Off camera. So
no, I had no idea. I had never taken a bump before. Shane had us running the ropes, at the practice ring at the studio and everything. I got nauseous after 5 seconds, but I didn't know what it was like. Again, something that will never occur in this day and age. Thankfully, there weren't cell phones back then where you could record video and stuff like that. This is 2000, which is insane to think. It was 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, all right, I'll take the power bomb, I guess. And I got up there second rope, because you could do a power bomb just standing. But this was a second rope one with Devon lifting me, ascending me up as Bubba Dudley is taking me. And it's not like Bubba and I, we're bowling together on Sundays either. We weren't exactly close. In fact, I think I had pitched a match where he and the Dudleys lost to Al Snow and Steve Blackman. So yeah, I don't know what to expect. And as I'm going up, I hear Shane yelling, "Tuck your head in." I'm like, what? And then we're airborne. But, thankfully, Bubba, total pro, I think his ass took most of the bump.
Right.
But I still took it. And I got to say,
chin. Yeah.
I did tuck my chin. I didn't bang my head or anything. It was kind of exhilarating. I felt like a man. This is I felt like a little bit of a world beater.
Nice.
Walking down to I walked to the hotel bar in the Baltimore Sheraton after once we all went home, and I ordered 2 beers instead of 1. That was was a big deal. Yeah. So
look at you. Good for you. That was basically your wrestling bar mitzvah, right?
Yeah. That was, as the 86 Mets were my actual bar mitzvah,
mm-hmm.
but that was definitely my wrestling bar mitzvah. I became a man that day.
Did I tell you I went to high school with Devon Dudley?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a couple of years. He never powerbombed me or set me up for one, but we played football together. He had a sack dance, which is outrageous back then because I think it was it wasn't before Gastineau, but it was right around then. I think he was the only one in the league with the sack dance. Oh, this guy's going places. He was 2 years younger than the rest of us and sacking everybody. But yeah, good dude indeed. All right. Well, this has been terrific. I do have one more question for you. First of all, The Miz wins MVP. Did you congratulate him on MVP of the celebrity softball game? I did not.
No, it didn't even occur to me to even, all I know is Mr. Cleveland, took that opportunity at the softball game to do one of his sickening hype videos for, "Come on, Dodger fans, get up," because everyone loves the get up guy, in the stands and everything. And now you can see him on video. And it's aren't you Captain Cleveland? What do you do? Your Dodgers outfit telling everyone?
Right.
Yeah, it's sickening.
Yeah, go root on your Guardians, whatever the hell they're called. Yeah, but no, this proves that we can do an interview without him. This is nice, and he's going to find out about it too.
This is the first interview we've ever done that didn't involve Miz and I yelling at each other 40 minutes straight.
It's kind of refreshing. I like both, actually. Here's your scenario.
Okay.
The Mets win the World Series, but the Bills go 0-17 with Josh Allen tearing his ACL week 1 against the Rams. Do you take it?
I don't want tearing the ACL. Can we just go 0-17 in general and just a bunch of, space aliens have taken Josh Allen away or something like that?
Let me get back to, I'll have to ask my guy who sets these things up, but I think you're getting too much bang for your buck in that scenario.
I would, it would be rough, but if I had put on the spot, I would take a World Series win versus the 0-17. The Bills, I love the Bills, but it goes Mets, Knicks, Syracuse basketball, Bills, Syracuse football, and the Islanders if they're good. You gotta take the World Series.
Islanders if they're good.
we thought this would be a regular occurrence after 86.
I know.
I was at Shea Stadium when the Yankees celebrated with Kurt Angle, by the way. We both went.
I was there too, but not with Kurt Angle. Yeah. I ran out of there to catch the 7 train. I couldn't watch Bernie Williams circle under the Piazza fly ball. Disgusting.
Oh my God. And I was there in 2015, when the Royals celebrated on our field. Mm-hmm. just something.
How did that team win? They almost won 2 World Series. Like what happened there? Oh,
I don't. Yeah,
familiar.
It's like I need another one. It's not. I just the Super Bowls with the Bills were heartbreaking, but this needs to happen, and
we're so far away though. Still, the playoffs aren't for another 2 months. They really are. They'll get started for us for 2 months if we're lucky enough to have won the division and get that bye of sorts. Yeah, but it's exciting. It really is. And you have a book out. What a year. This would be the greatest year of your life, right? If the Mets won the World Series. Mets win the World Series. Favored Bills win the Super Bowl, and Brian's book comes out. My God. What's better than that? You can't top that, right?
No, you're right. There's no topping that. And if the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, I don't even
forget the Knicks. They lost to some guys who work in a construction site the other day. You saw that? The 3 of them lost. What was it? Randall and Brunson,
Toppin, and Randall.
Toppin, yeah.
They're just, they're giving those guys they want to boost the community and make people feel good about themselves.
I see.
I think they,
well, that's a switch.
yeah, they're not used to that. But no, this could potentially. I don't want to look back at after whatever looming disaster happens on all 3 fronts. But right now, yes, this is not going to jinx anything. But I'd love to do another show with you in November, after the postseason on our terms, which involves a World Series win.
Let's please do it. I am just for fun. Now the Mets are 5-1 odds. They were like plus 750. And I know you're a crazy gambler too. You're betting $10 on every single bet on the board there. But if you do Mets and you do Bills, you're looking at 44-1. It's pretty good. And how
the computer won't even shut down before I go and make that bet.
Just do it. What's wrong with 44-1? Go get it now.
No, I love it. Are you kidding? Like when DeGrom when the injury news about DeGrom happened, and the line for the Mets season win total went from 91, 92 to 89.5. I immediately jumped on the over for that. It's looking pretty damn good right now.
It really is. There's just one problem. True tales from the former one-time 7th most powerful person in WWE. There it is. Brian Gewirtz. It comes out Tuesday, right?
Tuesday the 16th. Yes. And it's available for pre-order even before that.
I love it. And you're probably not 7th most powerful person right now, right? I would love to see the rankings now. You're still up there, I think.
Well, it's kind of like, when they retire in tennis and sometimes give you a wild card in the tournament, it's like, he's an entity that's out there, but isn't exactly on the ATP tour. Right. How about that? A last minute tennis reference, right? When, right at the last second. I knew
you'd get it in. I just knew you'd sneak it in somewhere in there. This guy wants us to talk tennis. He's bursting, for crying out loud.
Oh, finally.
All right, Brian. Hopefully, maybe I'll see you tonight at the at Citi Field.
That would be awesome. Scherzer going. It's blackout, Black Friday, Jersey, whatever. Right. I'll be there. Let's definitely meet up. We'll meet by the statue, the Apple, the Shake Shack line, Mr. Met's bachelor pad, wherever you are, we'll find each other. I love it. We'll toast Roddy, and then with shakes from Shake Shack, and then we'll listen for the horns, which signify an automatic win. Edwin Diaz out of the bullpen. Thanks so much, Brian. That was fun. Thank you. I'll talk soon.